In everyone's life, there are moments when it seems like the universe itself is trying to convey an important message, but its meaning remains elusive. It's as if an invisible hand is guiding you along an unknown path, but the signs go unrecognized. There are certain indications that a person is on the right track, but many overlook them, returning to their usual stagnation. Everyone has probably experienced a state where an inner voice persistently calls for change, but the mind resists. In such moments, it is important to realize that repeating life scenarios, heightened intuition, and other subtle signals from the subconscious are not accidental. They hold the key to understanding what is happening on a deeper level. Ignoring these signs can lead to repeating the same mistakes for years without noticing. Understanding and interpreting these messages unlocks the path to a rapid transformation of reality. If such signs have recently appeared in your life, it may indicate an approaching awakening. As Carl Jung stated, the subconscious constantly communicates with us through dreams, premonitions, and subtle changes in thoughts and feelings, sending signals about development and growth. The problem is that most people ignore these signals, continuing to live in automatic mode and repeating the same mistakes. However, in everyone's life there comes a turning point when the deep impulses of the subconscious begin to sound louder and more persistent. During this period, individuals awaken to new sensations, realizing that their inner world is undergoing transformation. Values and priorities that previously defined the meaning of their existence gradually lose their significance. Their worldview is re-evaluated, but it is not always possible to immediately understand how to use the newfound understanding. It is quite possible that the appearance of this video in the viewer's field of vision is not a mere coincidence. Carl Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity, implying that some events are not random, but represent significant interconnections that arise at the most appropriate moment in time. Perhaps the viewer is here because their mind is already actively searching for answers. The subconscious may have led them to this point because deep down there is a readiness for awakening. In reality, nothing happens just by chance. When a person is ready for change, the universe begins to send them certain signals, guiding them on the right path. Minor events, unexpected encounters, amazing coincidences, all of this can reflect the internal processes taking place in consciousness. If you feel an inner movement, if you have noticed strange patterns or recurring situations lately, as if persistently trying to convey the same message, it may indicate that the subconscious is striving to reveal a deeper truth. In this regard, it is worth pausing for a moment and reflecting. It is quite possible that the subconscious has been sending certain signs for a long time, which have remained unnoticed so far. It would also be useful to share your thoughts in the comments. A feeling of detachment is a sure sign of personal progress. Almost everyone who embarks on a path of self-improvement sooner or later encounters the weakening of old connections. Suddenly, it is discovered that some people no longer correspond to internal changes, conversations with them seem meaningless, and relationships are based only on habit or mutual convenience rather than genuine affection. Such changes can be confusing as they involve people who have long held an important place in life. However, as Carl Jung stated, our subconscious strives for connections that correspond to the current stage of development. In the process of spiritual growth, there is a retuning to different frequencies, and former companions cease to resonate with the new inner state. This does not mean that old friends are bad or that all contacts need to be severed. It only indicates the metamorphoses taking place in the personality. If previously important topics no longer arouse interest, if the horizons of the worldview have expanded and someone is still trying to return you to your former life, it is a clear signal that the subconscious is leading you on a new path. Often, the distancing occurs gradually and naturally. Meetings become less frequent, interests diverge. Despite the fact that changes can cause discomfort, as human nature resists everything new, it is important to realize that this is not a mistake, but an integral part of the journey. At the same time, it is necessary to distinguish between constructive isolation, which promotes development, and destructive loneliness. Distancing from some relationships and connections is a natural and sometimes necessary condition for personal growth. However, when the period of solitude drags on and a person gradually loses touch with the outside world, it is a warning sign. Creative solitude represents a conscious retreat into oneself for the purpose of deep self-analysis, re-evaluation of life values, and the formation of a renewed personality, free from external influence. This process is accompanied by gaining clarity and deepened self-awareness. An individual may experience nostalgia for certain people, but at the same time feels that the time spent alone strengthens their inner world. Destructive isolation, on the other hand, arises when retreating into oneself becomes a burden, when the desire to communicate with others disappears, and loneliness turns from a voluntary choice into a kind of imprisonment. A person begins to avoid social contacts, experiences a constant feeling of misunderstanding, and may find themselves in a vicious circle of self-defense, convincing themselves of the inability of others to understand them. Such isolation does not contribute to personal growth, but rather weakens it, which emphasizes the importance of a conscious approach to the period experienced. Distancing oneself from others is a sign of development if it is accompanied by self-analysis, internal renewal, and a kind of self-discovery. However, if it develops into a feeling of constant emptiness or aimlessness, it may be time to restore the lost balance. If an individual feels that they are moving away from certain people, they should not resist this process. Instead of trying to return to a past where they no longer belong, they should trust the natural course of events. In return for lost connections, new ones will inevitably form, more in line with the updated personality. But if loneliness begins to engulf a person completely, this warning sign should not be ignored. Another common indicator of progress on life's path is the feeling of losing significance in things that previously seemed important. Suddenly, established habits, daily rituals, and even deeply rooted beliefs that until now defined a person's existence begin to lose their appeal. It is possible that the reader has already encountered such a transformation. Those activities that previously caused a surge of delight and enthusiasm now seem monotonous and uninteresting. Certain television programs, musical works, or favorite places that were regularly visited no longer radiate the same energy and do not evoke the same emotions. At first, this can cause confusion and disorientation, as if something inside has simply disconnected from these things. The renowned Swiss psychologist Carl Jung explained this phenomenon by saying that at certain periods of life, our subconscious directs us to a new stage of personal growth and development. When a person is ready for further progress, their mind begins to discard those aspects and elements that no longer contribute to their evolution. This is a natural internal mechanism of renewal and self-improvement. However, the problem is that many people resist this process, trying to artificially recreate former feelings and emotions, believing that something is wrong with them, but in reality this is a sign of expanding consciousness and striving to find deeper and more meaningful things. Such changes can cause some discomfort since the human mind by its nature gravitates towards the familiar. But if a person feels such changes, they should trust this process. Instead of desperately clinging to what no longer brings satisfaction, one should allow oneself to discover new interests and look at the world from a different angle. This is compelling evidence that a person is on the path of personal growth and development. Another unmistakable sign of moving along the right path in life is the awareness of recurring scenarios in fate. A person begins to notice how certain circumstances arise in their life time and time again, as if they have fallen into a vicious circle. Perhaps they are constantly attracting a certain type of relationship with similar problems, encountering similar challenges at work, or periodically experiencing the same emotional difficulties. At first glance, this may seem like a simple coincidence. However, following Jung's ideas, the subconscious interacts with the world through symbols and patterns. The repetition of certain events indicates the presence of a lesson that has yet to be learned. The subconscious uses unique teaching methods, and if a lesson is not learned the first time, then a person repeatedly finds themselves in a similar situation until they realize the need for change. It is as if life provides additional opportunities to comprehend deep truths about oneself. Many tend to perceive this as bad luck or an evil fate, but in reality such situations represent a chance for personal growth. The problem is that without awareness, a person continues to repeat the same mistakes, hoping for a different outcome. Imagine someone who constantly enters into relationships where they feel rejected or unappreciated. At first glance, it might seem that everyone is the same, or that they are simply unlucky in love. However, if you dig deeper, it is likely that a deeply ingrained emotional pattern lies at the core. Perhaps in childhood, this person had to constantly fight for love and recognition, and now they subconsciously carry the belief that they are not worthy of unconditional love. This deeply hidden feeling has a defining influence on a person's behavior in romantic relationships, attracting partners who unwittingly reinforce their inner experiences. This scenario repeats itself time and time again, not out of conscious desire, but because of the subconscious's desire to resolve some unresolved issue. So, how do you break out of this vicious cycle? First of all, it is necessary to recognize the recurring pattern. Noticing that certain circumstances arise again and again in life, one should ask, what lesson does this experience carry? What beliefs or actions contribute to the repetition of the situation? When it comes to relationships, the solution lies not only in choosing a more suitable partner, but also in deep inner work on the belief in one's own inferiority. This requires rethinking past events and strengthening one's sense of self-worth. Another important step is to change habitual reactions. A recurring pattern indicates that certain actions are fueling this cycle. You should try new solutions, experiment with approaches, and question your own expectations. Even abandoning automatic behavior can lead to change. This may cause discomfort, as it forces you to face truths that you may want to avoid. However, having realized the repeatability of situations, a person is certainly ready for transformation. When a person recognizes and accepts the underlying reasons for their actions, old patterns of behavior lose their relevance, opening the way for a new stage in life. This indicates the mind's readiness to assimilate new knowledge and further development. One of the clearest signs of progress is a feeling of inner calling, a desire for something more. An unquenchable thirst for knowledge of the world, in-depth self-analysis, new ideas, and a fresh look at life awakens. Suddenly, interests may arise in previously alien areas such as spirituality, philosophy, psychology, or self-knowledge. There is a need for answers to questions that had not arisen before. Carl Jung called this the process of individuation, the path of becoming oneself. This striving for deep understanding is not accidental. It is a sign of the expansion of consciousness, which is no longer satisfied with superficial explanations. A person begins to feel that a deeper meaning is hidden behind the mundane and questions previously unshakable truths. This process can be both exciting and frightening, as it requires abandoning outdated beliefs in order to accept new perspectives. Many neglect this inner calling because of its apparent uncertainty. However, if a person feels this stimulus, it should not be ignored. This is a clear signal from the subconscious, calling for an exploratory journey. Perhaps the final destination of this path is not yet clear, but the initial discomfort indicates openness to a new stage in life. The main thing is to trust the process, allow yourself to explore, read, learn, and communicate with people who can broaden your horizons of perception. Often, answers to pressing questions do not appear instantly, but each attempt brings a person closer to a deep understanding of themselves and their life path. This internal impulse for self-knowledge does not arise in everyone, but only in those who are ready for personal growth and change. Another clear sign that an individual is moving in the right direction is the unpredictable reaction of the body. It is widely believed that internal transformations occur exclusively in the mind, but, as Jung argued, the body and the subconscious are inextricably linked. In the process of internal changes, the body feels them long before a person realizes them at a conscious level. Perhaps a person notices fluctuations in their energy level, sudden fatigue for no apparent physical reason, increased insomnia, or, conversely, a need for more prolonged sleep. Some feel tightness in the chest or causeless anxiety. Others, on the contrary, experience an inexplicable feeling of inner peace, even in the most difficult moments. All these manifestations indicate internal changes taking place in the consciousness. If a person ignores the signals of the subconscious for a long time, the body begins to persistently draw attention to itself. When experiencing physical or emotional discomfort, it's important to look beyond mere logical explanations. Ask yourself, what within me is striving for transformation right now? What have I been suppressing that is now surfacing? The body possesses wisdom. It senses changes even before the mind comprehends them. Instead of fighting these sensations, observe them, as they may point to a profound internal transformation. Many people abandon further development, mistakenly interpreting these signs as something negative, when in reality they confirm that the process of change has already begun. Another compelling sign that a person is moving in the right direction is the appearance of recurring dreams and enigmatic symbols that seem to contain an encrypted message. Carl Jung, a prominent researcher of the human psyche, dedicated a significant portion of his life to deciphering the mysteries of the subconscious through dreams, considering them one of the most direct paths to self-discovery. During periods of deep internal change, our mind, like a caring mail carrier, sends us messages in the form of vivid images and symbols that may seem meaningless at first glance, but in fact hold profound content. Perhaps an individual notices that certain dreams persistently recur, even if the setting changes. Perhaps the same places appear obsessively in their dreams, or certain people inexplicably show up in their night visions. These are not random coincidences. The subconscious communicates with us not through words, but through the language of metaphors, images, and feelings. If a person experiences intense or recurring dreams, or if certain patterns begin to manifest in their daily life, they should pay close attention to this. It is likely that the dream holds an answer to a question that has not yet been found in the waking state. A particular scene or symbol may contain a message that helps to understand what changes need to be made in one's life. Jung argued that ignoring dreams is tantamount to rejecting a letter sent to us by our own subconscious. If a person receives such messages, they should not dismiss them as insignificant. Keeping a dream journal can be an extremely effective tool for identifying patterns operating in one's mind and understanding the deep processes occurring in one's psyche. Often, only by looking back do we gain the ability to comprehend the deep meaning of recurring symbols, as if deciphering a complex code left by the subconscious. In this context, a dream journal appears not just as a notebook, but as a powerful tool for self-knowledge. Simply recording dreams immediately after waking, without attempting immediate interpretation, allows over time to identify patterns and connections, transforming a chaotic set of images into a coherent map of the inner world. This can serve as a sure sign of a deep transformation of personality, urging us to pay close attention to the processes occurring in the depths of our self. Moving from the analysis of dreams and symbols to other manifestations of inner growth, it is worth noting the simultaneous feeling of discomfort and confidence. This paradoxical experience is one of the most vivid indicators of development, signaling the irreversibility of change. The feeling of internal discord, the sensation that the old boundaries have become too tight, is accompanied by an unwavering confidence in the correctness of the chosen path. It is as if a door opens before a person into the unknown, and, despite the encompassing fear, a return to the past becomes impossible. This phenomenon, as noted by Carl Jung, is an integral part of personal growth. In society, there is an opinion that the right path should be paved with security and certainty, but genuine development occurs precisely in the zone of discomfort, through the destruction of outdated patterns and the acceptance of the unknown. If an individual feels inner anxiety, realizes that the former self no longer meets their needs but does not yet see clear prospects, this is a positive sign. This emotional transition represents a space for genuine transformation, where a new identity is formed. Unfortunately, many people give up at this stage, mistakenly taking discomfort for a mistake. However, as practice shows, there is no development without uncertainty. If a person is simultaneously gripped by anxiety and excitement, fear and curiosity, this is a signal to move forward. The subconscious is already pointing the direction, and it is important to follow its call. Recognizing the signs that indicate the approach of a new stage of life is only the first step. Genuine transformation begins with interpreting these signals and using them to one's own advantage. Many people sense changes but don't know how to handle the information they receive. They experience vague shifts within themselves, yet find themselves trapped by tormenting doubts, crippling fear, and paralyzing procrastination. Carl Jung, a prominent researcher of the human psyche, asserted that the starting point in deciphering the signals sent by the subconscious is conscious attention to them. This means that instead of habitually ignoring recurring situations, unusual dreams, or an inexplicable sense of inner discomfort, we should perceive them as harbingers of something more significant. The subconscious never sends meaningless messages. It always strives to guide a person towards a path that is not yet clear to their waking consciousness. The simplest yet effective method to begin interpreting these messages is so-called reflective writing. A person needs to take a notebook and start recording all the internal changes they feel. Which habits have lost their relevance? Which life scenarios repeat again and again? What dreams or intuitive premonitions have begun to visit them? There's no need to immediately find answers to all the questions. It's enough to simply record the signs and observe them attentively. Over time, the writing process itself will help the conscious mind establish contact with these mysterious messages. Another powerful practice is what Jung called a dialogue with the subconscious. In a secluded setting, with eyes closed, a person can imagine they are having a conversation with their deeper self. They should ask themselves questions such as, what is this dream trying to show me? What does this recurring situation mean to me? Why am I experiencing this discomfort right now? Initially, this practice may seem strange and unusual, but over time the mind will begin to provide answers, opening new horizons of self-knowledge. Eureka! Moments of sudden understanding, like flashes of long-forgotten memories or the birth of entirely new emotions. Dreams represent one of the most candid ways our unconscious seeks to establish a connection. The renowned psychologist Jung asserted that a person who neglects their dreams deprives themselves of invaluable messages that the mind is desperately trying to convey. Often, during periods of profound inner transformations, our dreams become more vivid, bizarre, or obsessively repetitive. This is because, during waking hours, our conscious self strives to suppress or downplay the significance of certain thoughts and feelings. However, in the realm of dreams, these shackles break, allowing the unconscious to express itself freely. If there is a desire for a deeper understanding of the signs sent by the subconscious, one should start with attentive consideration of their dreams. Do not despair if at first they seem chaotic or devoid of meaning. The unconscious does not use direct language, preferring to speak in symbols, metaphors, and images that reflect a person's inner world. One effective method for deciphering dreams is keeping a dream journal. Immediately upon waking, record everything you manage to remember without immediately trying to interpret what you saw. Over time, you may notice recurring patterns. Perhaps the same symbol will appear again and again, or certain emotions will regularly appear in your dreams. Carl Jung, a prominent researcher of the human psyche, used the term archetypes to denote universal collective human images that arise in dreams and reflect the deepest layers of our inner world. For example, the image of an open door in a dream may symbolize new horizons and perspectives opening up for a person in real life. At the same time, a feeling of confinement or being lost in a dream may indicate internal resistance to change and a reluctance to accept the inevitable. Unfamiliar characters appearing in dreams often represent hidden, yet to be realized aspects of the dreamer's personality. However, for a true understanding of the meaning of these symbols, it is necessary to consider the emotional background of the dream. The feelings experienced in the dream, whether fear, curiosity, or relief, are the key to deciphering the message embedded in the subconscious. Emotions serve as a kind of compass, pointing the way to understanding hidden meanings. If recently dreams have become frequent and intrusive, and at the same time there is a feeling that they carry something more than just a set of random images, it is worth paying close attention to them. It is likely that the subconscious is trying to convey information to the conscious mind that escapes attention in everyday life. One of the most effective ways to become aware of the signs sent by the mind is the practice of silence and meditation. In today's world, saturated with information and distractions like notifications, conversations, and an endless stream of tasks, it can be challenging to hear the voice of one's own subconscious. The constant noise and bustle drown out the inner voice, making it difficult to discern important signals. Jung considered self-analysis a prerequisite for accessing the inner wisdom hidden in the depths of the psyche. Only by immersing oneself in silence and focusing on one's inner sensations can one unlock the potential of their subconscious and achieve harmony with oneself. It is widely believed that meditation involves complete detachment from thoughts, but in reality, it is more of an art of consciously observing one's inner world without judgment. For those seeking a deeper understanding of the signals sent by the subconscious, it is recommended to make it a habit to spend a few minutes each day in solitude and silence, avoiding any external stimuli such as a phone. At this moment, one should focus on breathing and observe the flow of thoughts arising in the mind. In the initial stages, this may seem like a daunting task, and feelings of anxiety, restlessness, or a chaotic swarm of thoughts may arise. However, it is important to remember that this is a natural process. The key is to identify recurring patterns. What thoughts arise most frequently, and what emotions manifest during moments of solitude with oneself. As a helpful exercise, one can use the so-called meditation with internal questions. To do this, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and ask yourself the question, what is my subconscious trying to show me? Then, simply observe, without striving for immediate answers, but trusting in the mind's ability to reveal the necessary information at the right moment. Active visualization, a method used by Carl Jung himself, is another effective way to penetrate the depths of the subconscious. The essence of this practice lies in mentally immersing oneself in a symbolic space, be it a blooming garden, a majestic temple, or a mysterious dark room. In this imaginary place, it is necessary to carefully observe everything that arises, what images appear, what creatures are encountered, what objects attract attention, and what feelings arise. Each element that arises in this space carries a deep meaning and can be a key to understanding the messages that the subconscious is trying to convey to the conscious mind. Silence and meditation are not just ways to relax and escape from the daily hustle and bustle, but also powerful tools for capturing the signals that we often ignore in the whirlwind of everyday life. The subconscious has an amazing ability to persistently repeat certain patterns and situations until we finally pay attention to them. Jung was convinced that there are no coincidences in life, and every experience, every event, is a reflection of our inner world. This means that if certain problems, whether in relationships, career, or self-esteem, constantly return, it indicates the need to recognize and resolve some deep inner conflicts. Surely each of us has, at least once in our lives, wondered, why do certain difficulties haunt us with enviable constancy, as if we are repeatedly finding ourselves in the same play, where only the scenery and actors change? This is by no means accidental. Our subconscious, like an experienced director, subtly guides us into situations until we finally learn the intended lesson. To decipher the messages that our inner self sends us, we must learn to notice the recurring scenarios unfolding in our lives. These patterns can manifest in various areas. In personal life, we may find that we are relentlessly drawn to people of a certain type, and we repeatedly experience similar conflicts and disappointments. In professional activities, we may feel that we are constantly faced with the same obstacles and difficulties, regardless of the place of work or position held. In the emotional sphere, we may be subject to recurring feelings, such as oppressive disappointment, paralyzing self-doubt, or constricting fear. The main key to breaking these vicious circles is awareness of what is happening. Instead of despairingly asking, well, why does this always happen to me? Try to look at the situation from a different angle and ask yourself the question, what is this situation trying to teach me? What lesson should I learn from this experience? Even this seemingly insignificant shift in thinking can radically change our perception of problems and open the way to their resolution. Another effective way of self-knowledge is keeping a diary of recurring situations. When you notice that life is throwing you a familiar scenario again, it's worth capturing all the nuances, what feelings you were overwhelmed by, how you chose your course of action, and what it ultimately led to. After some time, after studying these records, you can identify patterns and commonalities. Often, the very process of writing and analysis helps to uncover insights that were previously hidden. Now, armed with knowledge of the signals of the subconscious and recurring patterns of behavior, it is necessary to move on to conscious actions aimed at personal growth. Many people, realizing the need for change, face difficulties in implementation. The solution lies in small but regular changes that eventually lead to significant progress. As Jung argued, the subconscious mind perceives gradual integration better than radical changes. This means that there is no need to change your life overnight. It is enough to gradually bring it into line with a new, desired image of yourself. If up to this point life has been flowing by inertia, it is time for more conscious decisions. Having reached this stage, it becomes obvious that the signals of the subconscious are not accidental, but messages designed to help in development. And now it is up to the person to decide how to dispose of the information received.